Welcome to IT Hour on KMET 1490. Hello and welcome to IT Hour, a popular show where we focus on best practices for a better IT experience. I'm your host, Brad McDermith, and our honorary host, Matt Creed. We're back again, and it's Wednesday on KMET 1490. So, Matt is our senior technology consultant and account manager, and Matt's back again because we've been having such a good time here, and Matt's going to help us process some of our topics today. Hey, thanks for joining, Matt.
Yeah, no, it's good to be here again. I'll take the co-host title at this point, I think.
I think you deserve it. And big shout out here to Mr. Peacock, our sound engineer and producer. Thanks, Mike, for all your hard work. And so today, our topics include solution design. We're going to revisit some of our VCIO stuff, some ransomware updates, and some other significant IT news items. But, you know, Matt, today we have a big announcement. Channel Futures has been spending the week revealing their 2021 MSP 501 award list, and they call it the dawn of a new era for managed service providers. Yeah, so introducing the class of 2021, this was a banner year in terms of applicants and overall growth and innovation. This was the most applicants submitted since 2017.
Wow.
And California Computer Options won last year and also won a few years ago and won again this year. We're not going to say where we placed here till the end of this, but here from Channel Futures, this is what they have to say. Systemic change is never easy, as is perfectly evidenced by the events of 2020. It takes courage, community, and massive communication to enact real change and see real growth. Companies included on the 2021 MSP 501 list represent truly innovative and influential market leaders providing managed services to today's most demanding customers around the world. These organizations stood out among an astounding number of applicants. They are a cut above in terms of their technical talent, growth-oriented business models, and strategic partnerships. So, you know where California Computer Options placed in the list of 501 MSPs, the top 501 MSPs in the world?
I do, actually, but I'm going to give you the honor of revealing that number.
Well, last year, I think we were 260-something.
Yeah.
We placed 143.
That is impressive.
There are over 100,000 MSPs in the world, and this is the top 501, and California Computer Options is now number 143.
It's awesome.
And so, I think that really helps, Matt, our credibility here in talking about cybersecurity, the solutions, that really what it takes to be a world-class MSP and deliver best-in-class solutions.
Yeah, that's great. And I know it is really nice, too, because I know, for example, my mother, who always listens to this, always takes what we say at face value, but it's always nice to have that affirmation from an outside source to make sure that everybody knows we do have an idea of what we're talking about.
That is true. Well, we have it now for the third year, number 143. Congratulations, California Computer Options, and our entire team. So, I'd like to start off with some statistics. Did you know, Matt, that there were 0 ransomware hits since our last show?
Oh, that's awesome. That means people are starting to take their security serious.
Yeah, that was a false stat. I was just
kidding. I was like, really?
Nope, just kidding. So that was just a fake one to get us started here.
Well, you definitely got me, that's for sure. That makes a lot more sense in hindsight.
Okay, so here's some good ones to follow up with ransomware. From 2020, 99% of organizations that paid the ransom received a functioning decryption tool. This is something a lot of people ask. When you pay the ransom, you're really rolling the dice on if you're going to get a functioning decryption tool.
Yeah.
Now, with obviously the ransomware folks, if they don't have the credibility a lot, they're not going to get near as many people to pay the ransom. So they've got to be providing encryption tools or decryption keys that really work. So, that is the 1%, I'm assuming, is probably attributed to a lot of people not using the keys right or something like that. So for the most part, they are providing decryption keys that really work.
Yeah, makes sense.
Another interesting one is, so according in 2019, organizations lost more than 7.5 billion due to ransomware attacks. That's pretty much in line with the statistics we looked at a couple of weeks ago, whereas that trajectory is just going up exponentially.
Yeah.
And then this is interesting, and this goes a lot more along the lines of the changing ransomware structure of the business itself. It says in 2019 there were 95 newly discovered ransomware families. This number is much lower than in the previous 3 years, 247 in 2016, 327 in 2017. According to cybersecurity experts, hackers have learned that they shouldn't target thousands of victims at once and expect a few of them to succumb to their demands. And if you remember how we talked about before, the goal was just sending a whole bunch of ransomware stuff out, keeping the ransoms low, just throwing a bunch of crap at the wall and seeing what stuck, essentially, making it low profile and just, continuing to shear the sheep. Now they have made it more high profile, making it a smaller amount of targets and working harder on those. And so the article says instead, cyber criminals now focus on specific organizations that are more likely to pay the ransom to have their data restored as soon as possible. That's exactly the profile that we're seeing now. That's why we've seen the high profile cases like Colonial Pipeline, JBS Meat, the MTA, all of those types of cases that we have been following here. And we'll do a little follow-up on those in the last segment. So some really interesting updated statistics here that really fit along the themes of the stories that we've been following.
Yeah.
And interesting how the industry is changing with ransomware as a service, and how they're not afraid to go after the high-profile stuff, even if it ends up being governments getting involved and changing policies and stuff like that. They don't seem to be afraid of that at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially gambling too, high risk, high reward. If they go with those kind of people and they can actually get them, then, at that point they've already won. The moment they're in, it's over.
Well, look at DarkSide. It's definitely a higher yield, $90 million inside of 9 or 10 months in their fiscal year. So
crazy.
It's incredible, and they're winning the war so far. It's a very lucrative marketplace for the ransomware folks, and so it's our job to continue to talk about the tech stack defenses that can keep you from being a victim here. And managed service providers are thriving because they've got the formula to keep businesses safe. And internal IT departments can keep up with that. And we're talking a lot about it right here on the show.
Yep.
So got some other interesting things in the news that are kind of a product or a byproduct of COVID. Not necessarily COVID, but the way governments have reacted to COVID, I think, is a more accurate way to describe it.
Sounds about right.
And chip shortages. So let's talk a little bit about that, Matt. And this is actually your item. And you've seen this a lot in account management and supply chains. And so this past year we have seen with supply and demand, let's talk about a closer examination of the global chip shortage and how the pandemic has impacted the semiconductor supply chain and why it's affecting our everyday lives. And so if you've recently gone to a store to purchase, an updated mobile phone, or maybe the latest gaming system, or, maybe you're just trying to buy a refrigerator or washer and dryer, and you're finding a lot of things on back order right now, right?
Oh, yeah. The inventory is crazy right now, especially all the way from, I think probably the car industry is getting hit the worst of anybody, but all the way from cars, all the way down to your toothbrush to your bank card even is one of the current ones people are talking about, because they're not going to have the chips to put into the cards at that point. But it's funny, I was talking to one of my clients the other day during one of my IT reviews, and we were discussing the chip shortage because we recently rolled out a server project for them, and one of the biggest delays we're seeing personally is with PC server hardware. So typically, it takes about a month to build out a server. Now we're looking at a 3 to 4 month lead time, which is absolutely crazy. But one of the things we were talking about, because they're being impacted as well, their industry also uses chips. I don't know that there's many that don't these days, honestly. But they had an employee who they bought their truck from Toyota, I believe it was, 2 years ago for 50 grand out the door, brand new. Typically, you drive a car off the lot, it's already lost, 30% of its value kind of thing. Toyota bought it back from him for $65,000 2 years later because of this shortage. So, I mean, It's just insane the amount that this is hitting. And I was reading some of the statistics earlier today, and they thought maybe this was going to be 6 to 8 months ago. And now they're saying this could impact 2, 3, 5 years out.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's really driven up the used car market value.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's been incredibly lucrative for used car resellers.
Yeah, that is amazing. And it's, clearly it's impacted all the supply chain for essentially everything across IT. From IoT devices to switches to routers to PCs to servers to everything. So, I know at home, we're waiting. My wife's a great cook and loves to bake and stuff. Our oven went out, caught on fire back in I think Thanksgiving. And we're back order on an oven. So really, pretty much all appliances have got chips, and so they're affected by the supply chain. So what can we do as an MSP to get ahead of that? And I guess it's inventorying more.
Yeah, pretty much keeping more inventory in stock, keeping a wider variety of inventory as well that you can expand. Is probably the best thing you can do as an MSP, or even if you have in-house IT, because the last thing you want is I know a lot of companies are coming back and hiring a lot more people that they had either let go or business is just picking up in general. The last thing you want is to not have computers for them when they get hired, or they have to wait a month to get a new computer. So keeping that kind of stuff in inventory will help a lot as well.
So I know here at California Computer Options, our purchasing is working with supply channels, making sure that we've got either inventory on demand, inventory here in-house, and trying to stay one step ahead of that. And actually even the same with certain software licensing. I know VPN licensing was a high demand. Of course, that's not related to the chip shortage, but all down the line, I think that's incredible. And I think it's important to realize that this is a global chip shortage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is not a California thing. This is not a US thing. This is really everywhere. And, this is mobile phones, this is smartwatches, this is TVs, this is appliances, but this is incredibly important when, for IT related items, all the way from, wireless access points, all the IoT stuff, PCs, servers, routers. I think, looking through some of these statistics, it's incredible. More than 1 trillion chips are made each year to cover roughly hundreds of chips that are used by any individual. I mean, those are just staggering numbers. And the whole thing is automated by highly sophisticated, and there are thousands of steps for, each of these items. And when that whole process comes to, just a grinding halt, it puts a huge air bubble in the supply chain, and that's what we're suffering through right now. So all starts with the silicone wafer, and here we are now standing in line for them.
Yeah, not to mention, even you're not having one chip per device either. Most of them have multiple chips. Cars have anywhere from 15 to 20, for example. Computers have multiple. Even a graphics card has multiple. Maybe your toothbrush only has one. I don't know the specifics on that, but just that alone is going to also drive up the price of all these things too, which it has been already. Like I said, with the whole truck analogy, but we're going to see that in our industry as well, if we haven't already. where, get your inventory now, because over the next year or two, computers and stuff could start costing even more money.
Great point. So circling back to the cars, according to Deloitte, electronics make up more than 40% of a vehicle's total cost.
Yeah.
And, the auto is getting hit the hardest. Well, that wraps up our first segment here. And when we come back, next segment, we're going to be talking about some more ransomware updates and some other significant IT news items. But if you're interested in any of the show items and you would like to give us your opinion or have any IT needs, please contact us here at 888-804-1MSP. You can email us at ithour@computeroptions.net or follow us on Discord. Here's wishing you best practices for a better IT experience.
Hi, are you ready to join a well-established managed IT service company? California Computer Options in Redland, California is currently seeking full-time remote work for Level 1 technical consultants and small to medium-sized business network operations center engineer, Windows Systems Administrator. Please contact us at California Computer Options 909-793-6338, 909-793-6338.
Attention residents of the Inland Empire. If you or someone you know is shopping for a mortgage, turn to one of the fastest growing mortgage lenders in the Inland Empire, Arrowhead Capital Mortgage. We offer a variety of loan products and options to help you and your family get into the home of your dreams, and we make sure the process is easy. Don't miss out on these historically low interest rates. Call now, 909-335-0430, or go online to www.ac.mortgage. That's 909-335-0430 or www.ac.mortgage. NMLS ID 267884, Equal Housing Lender. Call for additional cost information. Other restrictions may apply.
So you're a business owner. You might be a doctor's office or a bakery, or maybe you're a financial advisor. And no matter what your core business is, there's no denying that technology plays an important role in your daily operations. Unfortunately, as we've grown more dependent on modern technologies and systems, IT failures are starting to directly impact our ability to do business, in some cases with catastrophic consequences. Think about it. What happens when a server crashes at your office or your entire network fails? Your first step likely includes a phone call to a tech support line, where you'll troubleshoot a few things to try to determine the cause of the problem. If that doesn't help, you'll need to get a technician to come on site and try to fix things. And what happens while you're waiting? Your business suffers. The doctor's office can't access patient records, the bakery can't process inventory, and the financial advisor can't input customer data. So while you might think of technology as being secondary to your core business, the reality is that without it, many companies would find themselves at a complete standstill. And as we all know, time is money. That's where our fully managed approach to IT can help. With proactive remote monitoring and management, we're able to keep tabs on your IT infrastructure 24/7, 365 days a year. And when a problem does arise, our technical experts can quickly resolve it, in many cases before you're even aware that there was a problem at all. For an affordable fee, we'll provide the monitoring, technical support, and full problem resolution you need to stay productive. If you want peace of mind, call California Computer Options at 800-804-1MSP.
And we're back on IT Hour, a popular show where we focus on best practices for a better IT experience. We're on our second segment here with Brad and Matt. And Matt, we're going to talk a little bit about VCIO, a little carry on from our last show. And we're going to talk about solution engineering and the critical importance of the right solutions. And, you know, when your provider misengineers something, over-engineers it, under-engineers it, that pays. Unfortunately, that has ripple effects throughout your IT experience. And so I want to come up with some examples, or want to highlight some examples of what we're talking about here. And so recently, we're working on engineering some solutions that kind of brought up some good examples. So one example here I want to highlight is a new design solution where the specs called for a repository, a secondary data repository for file storage. And when we did the engineering, we found that that could all be done through OneDrive. And so this is a healthcare application that has compliance concerns, but we've already got Active Directory in the cloud for security. And to bring the second data repository adds costs, adds security concerns, adds backup concerns, compliance concerns, and additional complexity. And so when we talk about VCIO, that's the leadership role in account management. That's where we're bringing information and business and technology together. And that's where developing the solutions in the IT roadmap are really key. And I think that solution design and the right solution design are incredibly important. And that means not taking the right solution and then doubling it or tripling it is critical. So, let's talk about that a little bit. I know you see this a lot.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, which we've talked about in previous episodes as well with the VCIO role and, driving the roadmap. And that is exactly what you do, whether it's VCIO or the actual CIO. But in regards to that, like you said, it's not making sure you're going too deep on it. You're not going too shallow either. But it's also just figuring out, hey, when I'm going with this solution, what other solutions are there as well? Because a lot of the time someone finds something that works and they just stick to it. And like you said, with the data repository, that's something everyone knows about. You can just have an extra server for hosting. And a lot of people go that route, but it's like, hey, you also have other solutions available to you, one of which is already a part of a platform that you're a part of, and how can we consolidate that and save on money? So it helps with saving costs, and it helps with efficiency as well. You're keeping everything in one system, which to a lot of degree helps improve that as well. But really, I think the big thing is to not harp so much on just whatever your first solution is. So finding and expanding and researching and figuring out all the different options and then breaking it down from there. Because not everything is a one solution fit for everybody. The OneDrive solution for someone else might not be the best option they can do, but in this situation, of course, makes the most amount of sense. So it's really just analyzing that kind of stuff and making sure you're choosing the right solution for your client.
I think those are very good clarifying points. And I think one of the things from a VCIO standpoint is always looking for opportunities to simplify the environment.
Yeah.
Still meeting the objectives, but we're looking for supportability. We're looking for reducing the amount of services it takes to meet the objective, the amount of devices it takes to meet the objective, the amount of servers is involved to meet the objective, but still achieving redundancy.
Yeah.
We still want multiple replicating active domain or Active Directory controllers or domain controllers if possible, on-site and off-site. We still at very minimum want to make sure that we've got backups on-site, replicating to off-site. We still have some standards that have got to be met, but reducing complexity. We don't need 9 replicating domain controllers.
Yeah,
we
might be a bit overkill.
Yeah, we don't need 1 server per user models. Those are the types of things that we're trying to get away from and reduce the complexity. We don't need 150 extra ports on our switches and switches that are end of life and those types of things. So reducing that complexity, reducing dumb switches, getting visibility into managed switches everywhere, making sure that we don't have complexity in VLAN setup that are unknown and those types of things.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said too, every additional thing that you put into it has its own extra overhead. So, I mean, if you implement a separate data repository, for example, you have to have backup solutions, security solutions for that. Whereas, if it's all within one system, that's all, you're covering a lot more in that spectrum than having to branch out to multiples as well.
And then you're documenting two different sets of user permission maps.
Yeah.
And then you've got to be reviewing that regularly with the partner.
Yeah. Consolidation is always good. Right.
Again, so finding opportunity in simplifying and reducing complexity. And same with compliance concerns. As you're reducing complexity, then you're checking a box for compliance. One of the things, and I would say, I don't want to beat too much up on internal IT departments, but I think when it comes to costs, they seem to be the least good at this type of thing. It's kind of like the best value solution, and then they seem to double it or triple it. And they generally take the approach of some is good and more is better. And I think that comes with security layer products and hardware and those types of things. And unfortunately, I like to use the analogy, it's a lot like solder. I remember when I very first started soldering, I just thought if some is more has got to be better. But when you actually learn about soldering, you realize that you're heating up the places you want, and you're getting just the right amount to flow to those spots. And actually, too much solder and cold solder is not a good thing. And just throwing a bunch of misconfigured security products all over the place and not managing them and monitoring correctly, it's really useless. And it actually may be an additional security risk. So just throwing money at things, I think the government has illustrated that pretty well, maybe through education and keeping drugs out of prisons. Just throwing money at it is not a solution with IT. It is finding the right solutions for the right environments in the proper proportions, and then managing them and monitoring them correctly, and which I think we've illustrated well over this show. Plus, remember, we're number 143.
I know.
Whatever we say is right.
Yes, exactly. Unless somebody in the top 142 says otherwise.
Yeah, unless 142 says we're wrong.
But yeah, I mean, exactly. It's finding those things, and not only, and you will, like you said, kind of when you have internal IT, typically they throw more money at it. The nice part with like an MSP or a VCIO, or if your CIO is doing his job appropriately, you're trying to reduce costs while increasing efficiency, not trying to just throw money at it, like you said. So that's something that, in a position like what I'm in, you're always looking for those kind of things as well. Any amount of money you can save a company is money that can go anywhere else in their IT budget.
And that's true. That's exactly it. And, when we look at manufacturing, very sensitive to costs and efficiency, but not near as heavy on compliance, unless they've got vendor compliance. When we get in the healthcare space, much more sensitive to got to have all of those compliance items checked. When we look at legal, it's kind of a mixture of both, and so we have to take it kind of industry by industry. But all of these are private industries; they all are. They all need to be value sensitive. They all need to be cost sensitive. And when we look at things from a VCIO and leadership standpoint, IT really needs to be looked at as a revenue item and not the traditional cost item.
Yeah.
And so it's the VCIO's role to be showing how IT is constantly providing more value, how IT is constantly making the organization more competitive, bringing more competitive advantages over their competition. And, that is always the VCIO perspective.
Exactly.
Another critical role of your managed service provider or your internal provider is doing what I like to call finding the sweet spot on the security dial. And this is something that is really happening all the time behind the scenes with the security team. And really, it's ultimately the responsibility of the CTO to oversee it. But this is a team effort. And if the audience can kind of picture a giant dial, and as you turn this dial one way, it's tightening up security, and that is more steps for the users, password complexity policies, GPOs to be changing your password more often. It's multi-factor authentication. It's more compliance items. It's more lockdowns. It's more user intervention. It's more layers to get to all of your stuff in order to do your job. As we move that dial more the other way, it loosens everything up. It gets users to their stuff quicker. There's less security gates to go through. The job of the security team for the provider, and this is a collaborative effort because you're in these meetings a lot too.
Yeah.
VCIOs, account managers, and the security teams are all collaborating to figure out where is the best place to put that dial. Now that dial is customer specific, it's industry specific, it's environment specific. And there's always a lot of debate that is figuring out exactly where that dial needs to go. And during our IT reviews, we get customer collaboration on really where that dial needs to go. And compliance obviously has a big part to do with where that dial has to go. There's a lot of pushback from users that are trying to influence where the dial is supposed to go. And cost is always trying to influence where the dial is supposed to go. We could spend 1,000% more on tools and scanners and filters and people, et cetera, to try to influence that dial. But it is our job, on our roadmap to parse through all of the tools and SIM and BDR and EDR and all of these types of solutions to make sure that the stack that we're offering and recommending is truly the best value and truly the best spot on the dial. It's VCIOs working with the clients, working with the leadership team for each organization to figure out where the dial goes with respect to end user security awareness training and those types of things. So, Matt, I know that you're working in dozens of organizations right now and exactly figuring out where does that dial need to be set.
Yeah, it can be a tricky thing to decide. And like you said, I mean, there's a lot of, for example, with the medical industry, there's a lot of compliance standards and items like that, so that you don't really have a choice. That is the key word when you're talking to anyone in an industry like that is compliance. And there's no choice. They have to do those kind of things. So, I mean, at least from my perspective, when I am dealing with those kind of things and getting them set up with that, it is nice because, the moment you talk about compliance or anything like that, and we're meeting HIPAA standards, they're already on board. So it does make it a little bit easier for me. But there are a lot of other industries where that's not necessarily a standard, but it's also a good practice just in general. And like you said, you get a lot of customer pushback. Cost is another big factor. A lot of companies don't really realize, they just look at, hey, here's the cost to protect you. And until they actually get hit with something like that, sometimes they don't really understand the value. And it's our job to make sure that they understand that value before it gets to the point where, they're paying 4 times more what they would have paid you in one sitting just to get something fixed, like ransomware and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's a tricky item for the dial to not go too far to the right, not go too far to the left, and find that sweet spot. But it's all tailored to the individual client.
Yeah, that's very valid. And we get when we come back in the next segment, we're gonna finish this up a little bit. We're gonna talk about some of the things that as we're onboarding new clients, how we triage and how we prioritize taking in some of these things and helping new clients that really may be in a little bit of a mess, how we start to find that sweet spot on the dial. But we need to wrap up here for this segment and take a break to talk to our sponsors. But if you'd like to contact us, you can call us at 888-804-1MSP, email us at ithour@computeroptions.net, or follow us on Discord. Now here's a message from our sponsors.
Contacts, calls, chat, and meetings with ScreenShare, all accessible in one place. Now it's easy to work anywhere on any device with no friction. Brilliant! The smoothest communication and epic collaboration in one simple, unified tool. Save time, reduce costs, toss the fragmented tools, grow faster, get happier. Work instantly improves when communication and collaboration happens in one tool. Make calls, read voicemail, chat, have video meetings, and more, all on your browser. And all of this is instantly available with zero setup or configuration. It's business done better and the productivity solution you need. Talk to us today to learn what our proven UC solutions can offer your business. If you want peace of mind, call Telecommunication Solutions from California Computer Options at 800-804-1MSP.
Attention residents of the Inland Empire. If you or someone you know is shopping for a mortgage, turn to one of the fastest growing mortgage lenders in the Inland Empire, Arrowhead Capital Mortgage. We offer a variety of loan products and options to help you and your family get into the home of your dreams, and we make sure the process is easy. Don't miss out on these historically low interest rates. Call now, 909-335-0430, or go online to www.ac.mortgage. That's 909-335-0430 or www.ac.mortgage. NMLS ID 267884, Equal Housing Lender. Call for additional cost information. Other restrictions may apply.
Hi, are you ready to join a well-established managed IT service company? California Computer Options in Redland, California is currently seeking full-time remote work for Level 1 technical consultants and small to medium-sized business network operations center engineer, Windows Systems Administrator. Please contact us at California Computer Options 909-793-6338, 909-793-6338.
And welcome back to IT Hour with Brad and Matt. We are back at our last segment here. As we were pre-recording, I almost just called us Brat, and we were just getting a laugh over that. So it's Wednesday here. We're finishing up on KMET 1490, another exciting show. So Matt, I just found to follow up on our stats, there's been roughly 4,000 attacks per day worldwide, most of those centered in the United States. And that's ransomware attacks I'm referring to. So we'll quit the show when we're down to zero. What do you think?
I think we'll be here for a while.
I think so.
I think we can help stop some of it for sure. But it's going to be a long ride.
I think you're right. So let's go up and finish off. How do we deliver best-in-class security affordably? Yeah. And let's get back to the big security dial. We turn it one way and it gets too tight and it affects productivity. Users complain, we turn it the other way, and all of a sudden we're not compliant and we're letting things through. And so we talked about how the NOC team and the security team collaborates with the client, collaborates with the VCIOs and the account management, and we all work collaboratively together to set that dial and keep that dial in the right place per customer, per environment, per industry. And one of the things that's interesting is as we are onboarding new environments. So when we come to a new environment, oftentimes it's a little bit of a mess, and they don't have the basics done. They don't have the core stack in. They don't have patch management. They don't have a clear documentation. They don't have the firewall basics in. They don't have endpoint protection. They don't have mail security. They don't have a clear backup plan. They don't have retention backups. They don't have replicated backups offsite. They don't have the proper server and standardized approach to server and PC maintenance. So these are all the things that we're doing in onboarding. But lots of times they're coming and asking for some pretty advanced things. And lots of times that, they're asking for things like external threat testing and penetration testing and stuff. And so, I think our response is, if you don't trust your car to make it to Vegas, you shouldn't be investing in getting the car waxed.
Yeah.
That's really not the first step. And I think in terms of, just like we were talking about in the last segment, over-engineering and getting the steps right. So during onboarding, discovery, documentation, building the base blocks to the pyramid. You're not putting those top bricks in the very top of the pyramid. You're putting the base ones in first, and you're building up. Penetration and external threat testing are generally the types of things that we're doing for audits and reports and compliance and things that are done as needed. You don't go there first.
Yeah.
You've got to have a house made of bricks on a solid foundation, not a teepee built on sand. And so, that is definitely not something to start with. And, another thing that I think public and private boards are discussing right now at great length all across the fruited plains is cyber liability insurance.
Yep.
Virtually, I would say the majority of all of our enterprise clients now have it. In the last couple of years, that was talked about a lot more. I would say now with Colonial and JBS and the MTA and the federal government, everybody pretty much at one level or another being a victim of ransomware, all of this stuff being in the news cycle, boards everywhere are discussing cyber liability insurance. Not to mention, every cyber liability insurance salesman is hot on the phone saying you need it. Now, let's talk about that in two different segments. Number one, your best insurance, no doubt about it, is having proper IT. You have all the insurance in the world, but if you're going to get hit, why rely on the insurance? I mean, you want the practical approach. You can have life insurance, but if you're riding around on a motorcycle with no helmet, that's probably not a great way to plan.
Probably not.
But if you follow all the traffic laws and you ride your motorcycle with a helmet, it's not a bad idea to also have life insurance for your family. And I think that's how we approach this. Lots of boards, especially public, are now requiring it.
Yeah.
There are other covenants for financing. There are other compliance reasons now where you have to have it. So when we are talking about cyber liability insurance as a managed service provider, it's our goal to make sure that the partner, the client, is getting the lowest possible premium. And that means that we need to check every single box that the cyber liability insurance provider is requiring or requesting. And that means when we're looking at all of these assessment forms, it's interesting. All the things they're asking for are the layers that we're talking about. If you don't have multi-factor authentication for any externally accessed system, guess what? Your premium is going to go way up, or you're not going to be insurable. If you don't have patch management and mail security and all of the things we're talking about, a NOC monitored and managed IT environment, you're not even going to be insurable.
Yeah, there's a lot of those, especially what I've been dealing with lately. And I mean, cyber liability insurance in general. I mean, I probably dealt with one client over the past 2 years prior to recently that needed cyber liability insurance, and now I think almost all my clients need it. And like you said, even as little as MFA, I have some where they're like, "Yeah, okay, we'll sign you up, but we're not going to start covering you until you have MFA set up." And that's at the bottom level, and there's a lot of boxes to tick.
There really is. User security awareness training, really virtually almost most of the things that we were talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to have it covered or you're not even going to be able to be insurable. And if you miss even a couple small check boxes, your premium may skyrocket.
Yep.
So these things are critical, and your industry, your board, your regulatory bodies may all start to require it. So it's a big item now.
Yeah, it's definitely keeping those companies busy, I'm sure. And they're probably making quite a bit of money off of it right now too.
That is true. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how this stuff changes. So let's segue over and get a little follow up on the ransomware landscape now. So we know that it's hot and heavy. Just in May, this is one that we didn't really cover before, but we had a Washington, D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department on May 11th published detailed information on an extortion attempt, a ransomware hack. 22 different police officers, both current and former, were affected. Leaked information included granular details such as social security numbers, results of psychological assessments, fingerprints, polygraph test results, and even residential, financial, and marital history. A report on one officer can range from 1 to 300 pages long. And so that's what this ransomware hit. It was a separate gang from the Colonial Pipeline attacker group. And all of this stuff got published. Of course, leave it to our government. Encouraging it, sort of not encouraging others to pay ransom, but then went here to try to negotiate the ransom, failed. All of this stuff for these poor people got released.
Oh man, yeah, and that's definitely a different take on it too. Instead of locking down your files, you're extorting people at that point. So that's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, really a sad example. And so here, another one, irony at its absolute finest. Another insurer gets hit. So insurer AXA, Avidon, a ransomware group, claimed to have stolen 3 terabytes of sensitive data from branches of insurer provider AXA located in Thailand, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and the Philippines. Exact date unknown, but the websites were hit with a distributed DOS attack that made them inaccessible for several hours on May 15th. And the DDoS attack are a recent trend with ransomware groups first observed as a leverage point back in October of 2020. They were given 10 days to cooperate with Avidon before the ransomware group would begin leaking the data, which includes medical reports, some containing sexual health diagnoses, however you say that, claims, payments, customer bank account scan documents, restricted physician information, national ID cards, and passports. And so another failure in terms of incident response plan, their ability to protect the data to begin with, backups, and so on and so forth, a failure of the layered approach. Another one here, Bose gets hit. Bose Corporation hit in May. Bose stated that in early March it had experienced a sophisticated cyber incident that resulted in the deployment of malware or ransomware. Unlike Colonial Pipeline, the consumer electronics company did not make ransom payments, instead choosing to hire external security experts to restore any impacted systems along with forensic experts who could determine if any data was accessed or exfiltrated in the attacks. And so they were able to quickly secure the systems with the support of the third-party cybersecurity experts. However, they still had to send out their PII notices, And so, information was still extorted. And so it was kind of a half win in that they didn't have to pay the ransom, but they still had to do the PII notice. And so data still got leaked. So ransomware is still alive and well. We've seen this sort of paradigm shift between sending out thousands and thousands or tens of thousands of ransomware all over the place and just trying to get in the low-hanging fruit to really concentrated attacks on larger profile targets. And however, that shouldn't make you feel like, hey, I'm just a small business that are no longer after me, because we're still seeing that alive and well.
Yeah, that hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah. If you plug in your computer without a firewall and without endpoint, you can pretty much be sure you're going to be compromised by lunch.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, they're literally just scanning public IP addresses to see anywhere that there's open ports. I mean, targeted attacks for the bigger companies, like you said, are definitely becoming more of a thing, but that's not stopping anybody else from doing it at the even home user level to an extent.
That's right. It really feels like this strategy is in parallel to the old strategy, not in place of the old strategy.
Exactly.
Last quick story here before we wrap up this segment. Domino's in India just had 180 million orders placed via mobile with an email ID exposed. And incredibly important, goes back to our dark web scanning layer. That's why we're constantly looking for what is out there and exposed on the dark web. That's why our password policy and end user security awareness, all of that training fits in. We're keeping our passwords being changed on a regular basis so those credentials don't get stale. We're making sure they're not floating around out there on the dark web, and that ties into these major breaches. So, if any of this is resonating with you, please contact us at 888-804-1MSP. You can email us at ithour@computeroptions.net or follow us on Discord. Huge shout out to California Computer Options for winning the MSP 501 award, number 143. Here's wishing you best practices for a better IT experience.